So getting into it, okay, teaching it as a whole, because I think kids, players need to have a visual of what the end product wants to be. So I'm not here to teach transition basketball because everyone has their own rules and concepts. But at the end of the day, you certainly want to try and get these 4 spots filled, okay? Most teams these days play with a skilled 4-man. If you do play with a big body bruiser, 4-man certainly can fill in these spots, or you can make it work to your personnel. Once your 5-man is finished with their transition rules, I recommend him fill one of these 4 spots to promote the passing game concepts, okay? Whether, you got to think visually. If a drag ball screen, he rim runs, you probably get him down here to the dunker spot or something like that, but then he needs to work himself to one of these positions so he can initiate some type of action, okay? So the actions that we can go to simplify it, okay? If it's a pass down, what I mean by a pass down, it goes from the slot, these being the slots. This is what I call the slots. Hopefully you guys have some similar terminology. If the ball is passed down the floor, okay, we should just pass and cut and fill to the other side. You're just like sand in an hourglass. You're just pulling over, okay? If the ball goes from here down, and it's simple terminology, whether you're coaching under 10s, under 18s. If I pass down, I'm passing and cutting through, okay? Okay, pass down with the 5-man at the high post, a UCLA cut. For those that aren't used to that terminology, if the ball goes to the side and 5 as the offensive player is at the high post, just cut, and then you're coming down into this area or filling out depending on what rules you want to do. So simple UCLA cut, okay? And then a UCLA cut, some simple concepts and rules. If you UCLA cut and you stay in the block area, okay, if you stay down, posting up, if you have a guard that wants to post up, the way they can get out of being on the block is your back screening, okay, back screen. Or if you just UCLA cut and you want to empty out, if you UCLA cut and you post up, you have to back screen your way out of the play. If you just UCLA cut and replace and everyone just fills over, nothing has to change, okay? Okay, if it's a slot to slot pass, okay, slot to slot here, and it's a perimeter guy in this position, you're gonna flare screen, okay? Anytime it goes slot to slot and you're trying to initiate action with your perimeter players, make it a flare screen, okay? Now, and we'll get on, I got diagrams and that further on in the presentation, but just bear with me, try and use your mind a little bit. It is a creative game. The players aren't robots. If this is a big and he passes slot to slot, he's gonna always screen away, okay? Keep it simple to start with. We don't need tricky, we just need tricky players, okay? Not tricky plays. Screen away. Bigs always screen away, so you're screening down, and then you're going to play out of that action. If it's guard to guard, slot to slot, and it's a perimeter guy, you want to flare. And then we can get into talking a bit later about flare slips, screening your own man, depending on how defense is playing your perimeter personnel. Okay. You guys too, if I can easily email this presentation to Jared and then he can disperse the PowerPoint to you guys so you guys don't lose anything in translation here. Okay, slot to slot between the perimeter players. As I said, you want to pass and cut if it's a down pass. If you're receiving a flare from your wing player, I encourage slips with switching teams, screening your own player, this type of thing. Allow your players to be creative and play with an open mind, okay? Slot to slot pass made with the big, as I said, screen away. Okay, just let your teams get used to screening away, especially if you got good perimeter players that can play off away action. It's going to be good. And then even if you're creative and you got bigs that are capable of picking and popping, you can screen away get the guard curling over, and then your big can pop back out to the perimeter. Okay, here we go. This is what I'm talking about here. Okay, if it's a big, okay, making the pass, we're going to screen away. Okay, and we always want to have these four spots filled like we had on the original diagram. Okay, so if a perimeter player is down on the post, remember the rules. To get out of there, you got to initiate some type of screening action. So if a big screen's down for a perimeter player to come up, great opportunity for a perimeter player to come and back screen for the big and get him into the post area. Okay, and there we go. Then you'll have your four perimeter players back on the outside where everyone's comfortable. Okay, but I can tell you some teaching points here. We tell our players to 2 count with the ball. Me personally, I think that's probably just a little bit too long, especially if you're coaching at a good level and you got good decision makers. Because look, if you got good ball movement and you got good pace with your offense, with good action, you will always find good shots, but the ball has to move. You got to think, if the ball stops, that's going to give a defensive team a chance to recover and get back into their positions where they can nullify any advantage you have. Offense, once you have an advantage, you want to keep the advantage. Okay, here we go. Next kind of situation you're going to have. You're going to have a big on a perimeter. As I said, if you do play with 2 bigs, you got to just treat one of them as a perimeter guy and go from there. But you are going to get a big on the wing. So if it's a perimeter to perimeter, slot to slot pass, he is going to flare screen. Okay, get that. Now, first of all, look, we got this pretty diagram here. But first, if you pass the ball slot to slot and he can just basket cut because the defense is lazy, you can never tell your players not to make a scoring cut, and then everyone else can just fill in behind. And as long as you got your 4 spots filled on the perimeter, you're always going to have good spacing, and you're going to be high up on the floor, giving your drivers plenty of space to drive to the baseline. Okay. Now, couple things. If you go slot to slot and he flares and you throw the pass to the perimeter player, couple things you can do. You can go on ball screen, okay, because that allows some type of ball screen continuity within the passing game. Or what I highly recommend, once you get some side to side or some paint touch action, is the reason you run the offense so high on the floor is catching this pass, ripping it baseline. Okay. Number one, in the US, everyone's about pressure defense. You rip baseline, you can just pin fouls on guys. I've been away from Australia too long. I'm not sure whether they blow the whistle with freedom of movement so quickly. But if you got good players and catch on the perimeter, you can just rip baseline and pin fouls very easily. Now, once you get baseline penetration, obviously you got to abort these spacing spots on the floor. You got to get a guy to the baseline. You probably want this perimeter guy moving more towards the wing to give these guys different opportunities to move. Now, if there is a perimeter guy that's down here on penetration, I'd have them filling back out this way so they're not going to clog up the space of these weak side players, okay? There. Okay, now going to some breakdown drills, okay? Breakdown drills that we do multiple times a week in practice, and this is what we emphasize, short-sighted games. So I would recommend the more times you can get your players playing the game and they're the passers versus having coaches or someone else on the floor, I fully recommend this, because for this offense to be successful, reading the game and being able to make the passes are the most important thing, because if you can't make the pass, you won't even get a shot off, okay? So allowing your players to be creative with their passing, and, you know, look, like anything, when you start something new, it's going to be ugly and turnovers will happen. So that's when you need to probably look to the sideline and just pretend that pass didn't happen. So here, first drill, you got 2 perimeter players and a big. Okay, slot to slot when it's a big. It's always a pin down. Okay, now, this is what I'm talking about. Your perimeter player has the ball, we screen away. Me personally, I don't want that perimeter player dribbling the ball until he sees what is going on with the action. How is the defender playing the perimeter guy? Is he going to go underneath? Is he going to trail? This guy needs to have an idea of how they're playing it, okay? Maybe the bigs defender is playing on the high side because his coach is telling him to show on all pin downs. Then he needs to have the freedom to slip to the basket, because understand, you're going to have another guy over here and probably another guy down here towards the baseline somewhere. Okay, now, how many of us, just think about this, how many of us are always telling our players to talk on defense, talk on defense? Everyone's guilty of it. On the flip side, I'm not sure how many of us demand talk from the offensive end. We might ask our point guard to talk out, shout out the play, but everyone needs to be a good communicator on offense, because the guy with the ball, he's the guy that can actually see what's going on. So a big, no offense to the bigs, but sometimes, you know, they don't recognize as quick as the perimeter players. So as he's screening down, the guy with the perimeter player with the ball may see the bigs man showing. He can talk to him and tell him to slip. If the defense hears him or reacts, you're going to create some type of confusion somewhere on the floor that will lead to something positive in an offensive mindset, okay? So as he screens away, we should just be playing live from here, okay? That perimeter guy needs to come off the screen and needs to be a playmaker. Now, there's an advantage created because he's played and he's read the screen the correct way. If he comes over the top, because the defense changes, he probably wants to one dribble, chase dribble in here. The big's going to roll. Then you're working on your pocket pass. So as you can see, there's a lot of similar concepts to a ball screen offense, but we're just initiating with passing instead of dribbling. And part of the reason we went to some of this year is we have some very talented players, but they get dribble happy. So we were trying to create more of a ball movement, player movement offense. And it's tougher for teams to scout against as well. At our level, scouting is a big part of the game. So we wanted to give our players some freedom if they were willing to share and pass the ball. Okay, now the other thing is if the defender wants to shoot the gap or whip the gap, whatever your terminology is, he needs to flare, and then that's when you got your drive baseline. So when you drive baseline, your action is going to be the big's going to roll to try and find the pocket or the window that's open. Now, obviously, we'd have another player that can get to the corner, but here, once this guy's delivered the pass, he's live in the action. So you can't have him hunting down here, but he needs to find the window where he would be in a game situation, presenting himself to be open. Okay. Now, your own rules might be if you got the big rolling, that next guy might have to pull over. If that's your concepts, I would highly recommend have this guy pull over. So please incorporate your own concepts when you get into these breakdown drills. Okay. Now, once this passer, like, understand this, he can't just stand and just be like a scarecrow in the field. If this guy flares, he has to take the ball to the action. You got to shorten your passing lane to be able to make a successful pass. Everything has to be live so the guys understand. When I say guys, I mean girls as well. So they understand what the game speed is all about. And that's the one thing I would encourage you guys. Get them playing with a good pace and speed. If it's ugly early, you're just going to have to live with that a little bit. Okay, flare screen. And this is, the way basketball is played right now, you're going to have 4, maybe 5 skilled players out on the floor. So treat these as perimeter players and working on flares. I can tell you from my own experience, if you're a really good screener, no matter what position you play in the game, you're going to get a lot of open shots if you understand how to read screens. So if I'm a selfish scorer, I'm going to try and get to this spot, and I'm going to hunt flare screens, because if I set a good screen, I'm going to create confusion. I pop, and then I can play. If I can see that they're confused because they're switching, I'm just going to dive straight to the basket and be the recipient. Okay, but let's just say for the drill, we pass, we flare screen, nothing happens. Okay, now if we're playing perimeter guys and one guy wants to slip, he needs to bring the ball over, this guy needs to fill back up, and then we can initiate the same action again with different offensive players. Okay, so I would not encourage bad shots. I'm playing a drill so they get good shots. Okay, but I'm allowing to be creative with the way they read screening. Okay, I think that's something that's gone out of the game. We just want players to come off a screen and then decide what's happened. Let the defender make a mistake and then take advantage of his mistake. Okay, as you can see up in the top left here, just some different things we can look at. Slipping the flare. Okay, if you know a team is going to switch, okay, and I'm this guy, his defender's usually going to be up here, I'm just going to run right into him and screen him. Whatever terminology you want to use, sandwich, whatever it is, that's what I'm going to look to do. You're still going to set a screen. You still might slip, but if you screen your own man, something good of that's going to happen. And as I said before, always, no matter what action happens, make sure we get these 3 spots filled once the action is done so you can get a second rep at it so the same guys are involved with that. Okay, flare screen with the big. Okay, now this is people that like to get ball screens involved in their offense. This is an opportunity, and this is a good way of incorporating ball screens. Okay, we got a big on the wing. Okay, we go slot to slot pass. We're flaring. Okay, this is where you're really teaching this person how to play and read a game. He's going to come off the flare. If there's nothing out of that action, okay, couple things you can do. You can go and get the big go and rescreen, because in all honesty, if you can't throw the pass to this guy, it's because the defense has done a good job of getting over the top and taking the pass. If you come right back with a quick rescreen, he's going to be open. If he's not open, it's because the bigs really helped out on the help, and he's going to be wide open on the slip. Okay. Now, if this perimeter guy does get the pass from the perimeter guy, then you can come and bring the big into a ball screen. So you get an empty corner ball screen, which, you know, most teams are pretty successful once you've had some initial movement and you get an empty side ball screen. Some good things are going to happen out of that. Okay. But here, I just want to highlight, as I said at the start of this, pass here. If the defense does not react, just basket cut. So something there, then I would encourage. If he basket cuts, then your big can just go down and pin down, and you're playing like floppy action out on this side of the floor. Okay, so you guys as coaches, get creative with your own mindset. This is a great opportunity for you to be a great teacher and be innovative with allowing your kids to figure some things out for themselves as well. Okay. The other type of cut, because most of you guys will have pin downs, you'll have flare screens and all of this. Now we call this a pipe screen, where it's just, as you can see here, when a perimeter person is down here, whether they've posted up or they've cut through and they're just holding until a spacing opportunity comes, they can always come up through the elbow and get this big on a we call it pipe, but in theory it's like a back screen UCLA cut. So a drill we run, okay, you'll need a coach on the floor unless you want to create it to a 4-on-4 drill. Okay, so the big will hit the coach, the perimeter coach starts with the ball, reverses it through the big, and we get it over here to the perimeter on the wing. Okay, then this perimeter guy, in essence, who's just been hanging out, he's going to pipe cut, and then we're playing out of this. Okay, so this is another great opportunity if you want to work on your big posting up, throw it into the post, and then if you got any post action, work on your post action out of that. But then if you get it here, the big cuts off, he's not open. Obviously, this perimeter guy is going to pop, as you see over here. this perimeter guy will reverse it back to the coach. Now we're getting into our passing game concepts. If it is slot to slot, what the perimeter guy on the wing, anytime it's slot to slot, you're flare screening. If you're a perimeter player, you will come with the flare. We don't want the big just taking up space and hunkering down. We want him to be an active mover. So then flare screen, then you can back screen and get that perimeter guy moving again. Or an action that we will use in our own concepts is we just call it flare screen, ball screen, where here throws there, perimeter will flare, he'll come off and fill to the corner, and then the big after his back screen will just come and ball screen. But right now with a coach, I'm not going to ball screen for Curtis Sardi while he's out there. He's really bad at coming off a ball screen. Okay. Back screens for the big. This is a great way to get maybe some unskilled bigs, some repetition on the perimeter, which allows them to be a decision maker, and they got to work on their ball handling. So here we go. Bigs on the block, 2 perimeter guys, and the coach once again. The ball will start on the wing. We just reverse the ball. What's his concept? He has to back screen to get the offense moving. So here he back screens, and then he'll come and flare screen. Okay. Now, if the coach can't make a read or something proactive comes out of this set, okay, the big then will be up here. The coach can get the ball. He'll reverse it. The other perimeter guy can come up and pipe screen, and then the big can cut off, and we play our actions, okay? But I can recommend this short-sighted game is a great way to get a big that's uncomfortable playing on the perimeter if he's just purely a back to the basket, because he has to back screen. If he catches the ball, he has to be a decision maker in it all, okay?